I get all that so I'm a solo entrepreneur. How do I get what I have all up in here out so that I can transfer some of the tasks?
Yeah, so slowly but surely, right? And I like to do it, number one, the first thing that we always do is ask you to screen record things that are like easy to transfer. So if it's you actually just like executing a task, then record yourself doing the task on Loom or something like that and talk yourself through it. So that's one way to like transfer things over that's really quick and simple. If it's like really information and decisions that live in your head, the best way to do it is to like slow down as you're making decisions and think through like, why am I making this decision? And like, what are the things that I'm running through that allow me to make it? Like, why am I making it this way? So you can even ask yourself after you make like big decisions or things that, you know, you want other people on the team to eventually understand and know why you're doing it, is like, why did I make it that way? So there's a book by Ray Dalio called Principles. It's a big book, but it's a good one. And one of the things he talks about in there is how he runs like a financial company and does like market investing and stuff like that. And one of the things that he started doing with his team was at the end of the day, he would do something called daily observations. And he would write an email to everyone on the team sharing like why he made key decisions the way that he did, because that helped him reflect on, you know, getting those reasons out of his head so that they could think more like he does, right? It's not that he's transferring that exact decision, because that exact decision might not come up again in the future, which is going to be true for your business as well, right? Like we can't actually standardize and process everything because there's going to be nuances that we just really need people to understand how to think like our organization would think, right? So if at the end of the day or at the end of the week, you kind of think back through, or even after you make a key decision, ask yourself, okay, well, why did I make it that way? And you can record a voice note or you can jot it down on a Google Doc. But if you don't have a team yet, that's how I would start. And if you do have a team, every time that someone comes and asks you something, I want you to think through like, and ask them like, why are you asking me like this question? Like, why are they asking me this question? Right. And it's because they don't know something. And if they don't know it, like, how can I get it to them? And so a lot of times now, like I don't actually create the tools that we use to transfer information, but they are creating them for me, right? They're like, oh, Adrienne made this decision and I asked her why, and she gave me the reasons why. And then I created this decision tree. And so sometimes it's even having your team execute and create those tools for you, because they're the ones who are then like processing how to think through it the next time. So I know that that's like a lot, but especially as you first get started, I would just advise you like slow down. And it's going to keep coming up, especially as you start hiring, right? Like, because that's when it's really going to be obvious that there's a lot that lives in your head. And so I'll just share with you, don't wait until you get everything out of your head to hire them. Like they need to come on board way before you even have everything documented. I know this is like, some people think I have to have everything like cleaned up, and it's like cleaning before the cleaning lady comes over. It's like, we're going to bring the person onto our team with the understanding and the expectation that like, they're going to help us set up a lot of these systems and they're going to help us transfer a lot of the information. Like everything is not going to be clean and perfect when they come on board, and they will actually find more ownership and autonomy on your team because they've helped to create it and because they've helped you get some of that stuff out of your head. So definitely don't wait until you get it all out of your head either.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. See Brandy, hand up.
Yay. Thank you, Adrienne. So first of all,
you are welcome.
Like all in my space, all in my business. So I'm not a
reading your mind.
Yeah. Oh my God. I actually have 26 employees, but I now know that I'm guilty of something. And I just want to go ahead and plead guilty. I am giving the task to people and then it's bouncing back to me because I don't think I'm making them feel comfortable in their decisions. So I have a question.
Yes.
How often should we meet with them or kind of course correct so we're not killing them, but we're also making sure my industry is highly regulated compliance.
Okay.
So I I need a balance because I think I'm looking at them like this the whole time.
And they're scared.
Yeah, I think I'm turning into the scary lady. Oh my God.
Yeah, I totally feel that, especially in like heavily regulated industries. I know that this can feel very scary to like give some of those things over. And so what I will say is I think you need to start with lower stakes things, like lower stakes decision making that they can start to build their confidence around of like, oh, I'm getting it, right? Like, okay, I'm like making good decisions here. And then it also builds your trust at the same time. Like the same time that they're building confidence, you're building trust. And so we want to start with like simple, low stakes decisions that they are getting right, 80, 90% of the time, where you're like, oh yeah, because we do not want them making bad decisions or wrong decisions, especially in heavily regulated things, like at the really high stakes level. So I say anything that's like far away from the money or further away from the clients or customers is going to be like your lower stakes things. And then once they start doing those decisions well, then we can build them up to the higher stakes things because you've built more trust in them and you're like, oh, they understand the company, they understand what we're doing here. I also have 2 tools that we teach inside of our program that I think are going to be useful. Number 1 is what we call guiding principles. And so these are like a step below your values. Like they're a little bit more specific than just values. And they can kind of guide people in better decision making. Because like I said, you're not going to have like an SOP for every single decision that comes up or every single thing that comes up. And so how do we kind of make sure that they're moving in the right direction without needing to answer every single thing? So the guiding principles that you could create for your company help them be like, oh, I'm on the right track. And like, this is something that I know the company would do. And I also think it's important, Brandy, for you to create those guiding principles, not based on what Brandy would do, but based on what the organization would do. And I want you to start thinking about the organization as an organization and like it makes its own decision. Like think of it as a person almost, like it makes its own decision. So even if it's not the decision I would have made, like is it still something that the organization would make? And is it still something that is in alignment with our guiding principles or with our values? Then it's okay. Even if it's not exactly what I would do, because as you're growing and scaling this company, you're going to have to start trading your control for freedom, right? Like you cannot have control and freedom at the same time. And so I teach that like on a spectrum, and like control over here, freedom over here. And so you might be over here where you want lots of control, but it means it's not giving you any freedom. And so we need to like baby step you over to, and you don't have to do this all at once, right? Like you don't want to go from like needing all the control to like having all the freedom, because it will just mess with your mind. Like you won't be able to do it effectively. But like incrementally, as we start handing over those low stakes decisions, you're like, I love the freedom that this gives me. And it's cool that like they're making decisions and they're growing as individuals, and they're still making decisions that are in alignment with, I think compliance has to be your number 1. And I do think you have to like drill that into people. Like we do not make decisions that would move us outside of compliance. And so that might be one of your guiding principles, is like, we never make a decision that would put our compliance at risk, right? And if you need more information on what puts our compliance at risk, here's a link to like that, or here's some information on how to find if this would put compliance at risk. So that I think would be a guiding principle so that they can understand how to think through those things. The second tool that we use that could be helpful is something that I call training wheels. And I call it training wheels because it's something that we don't want to use forever. But when we're training someone and wanting them to build confidence and wanting us to build some trust, it's something that goes through a review process so that they can gain more information, right? And it also requires them to critically think first versus just coming to us right away and being like, what should I do here? So what they have to do is like, for whatever the thing is, like customer feedback or customer support is usually one that we use this for a lot, where if they're answering customer emails or something, they put in like all of the information, like what's all of the information about this specific customer? Because half the time when people are coming to us, they don't even have all of the information that we would need to make a decision. And then we have to go back and forth 3 times. Then I'm like, how long have they been a customer? Like, what's their background? Like, what are the things that they're asking for? And so making sure that they understand, like, what do you need to think through to even make a good decision here? And then what is your suggestion for what decision we make? right? So they are going to have to critically think here. And so it's requiring them to stretch that muscle prior to coming to you. So they're going to write out like, here's what I think we should do based on like our company guiding principles, or based on this specific customer, or based on what I know about our company. They're going to come up with what they think is the decision. And then they're going to submit that to like you or whoever's responsible for reviewing it. And then you can record like a Loom video or something back, giving them feedback. So if it's like good to go and they're like, they nailed it, great. Like go for it. Like, this is amazing. You don't need, you don't need anything else from me. If it's something that you're like, this is a tool where you can change the decision without like eroding the trust, right? Because you can say, I like that you gathered this information and I like how you're thinking through this, but here's why I would actually do this. And you're giving them more insight onto why you would do it differently. So it's in a really productive way versus me having to go back in and change the decision after it's already been made. And then it's just eroding their trust and they're not learning anything, right? So giving them the training wheels kind of framework, and then they present those to you. And then I always tell people, once people are getting things like right, like 85 or 90% of the time, and every time they give you something, you're just like, yep, good to go. Then you don't need to do that anymore. You kind of know that like they've got it, like they know their role, they know the company well enough that you trust them to make good decisions. And so you can kind of take those training wheels off and set them free.